Hello and welcome to Encore. Coming up on today's show, Amer Shomali joins us in the studio, working with film, animation, sculpture and drawing. This multidisciplinary artist draws on his Palestinian heritage to create pieces of work which seek to challenge the status quo and just maybe use art to bring about change. Let's go and meet him. Amer Shomali, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for you.
Well, I'd just like to start with this film, The Wanted 18. This is a documentary as well as a feature film. It's being screened at Paris's first Palestinian Cinema Festival. And when I went into the cinema, I expected these Wanted 18 to be sort of fugitives or criminals, but they're not quite that. Can you explain who these individuals are?
Basically, the name is a bit misleading for purpose. The Wanted 18 are 18 cows. Basically, during the first Intifada, boycotting Israeli product and preparing the people to go through self-sufficiency and civil disobedience was very essential. So a group of activists decided to have a dairy farm to produce their own milk instead of buying the Israeli milk. So they bought 18 cows and started milking them. The interesting thing that none of them saw a cow before. All of them are intellectuals, pharmacists, doctors, but it worked. They learned how to get the milk out of the cows. Eventually, the Israeli army realized how dangerous this project is. And they came to the farm. They told them that you have 24 hours to shut down this farm because those cows are a threat to the security of Israel. For the next 4 years, the Palestinians hid the cows in their houses in the mountains, and the Israeli army was chasing the cows with helicopters and patrols going in the streets. So it's a funny take on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. From the perspective of the cows.
I must say that I found it very funny. I mean, this black humour of having cows that are so dangerous and wanted in this very tense situation. I mean, it sounds very surreal, but it was actually happening. It's a true life account of what was happening in the very violent context of the first Intifada. Why did you feel that humour, albeit black humour, was the best way to approach this issue?
I believe that people who can't make fun of his own wounds will never be able to heal it. I feel that laughter and jokes are one of the weapons you as oppressed can face your oppressor with. If they can't control your laugh, if they can't control your soul, they can't control you at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get a close-up look at just how Amer merges animation and documentary footage in The Wanted 18. Here's a clip.
Early 1988, a Bet Sahur cow truck drove to an Israeli kibbutz. An Israeli peacenik there agreed to sell my town the cows. There was Rivka, Ruth, Lola, and then there was Goldie.
Well, just going off that film there, that was part of the festival in Paris here, the Palestinian Cinema Festival. Much of what they're trying to show is the best of contemporary cinema coming out of the Palestinian territories. Of course, much of that is political, but there are personal stories, love stories. What were you surprised to see in this festival? What impressed you to see on screen?
Basically, I saw most of the films. I was impressed with what was in front of the screen. The audience, the French audience coming to those events. I was not expecting that many people to come to those screenings. And it's a great indication that there is change happening in Europe, that they want to know more about the Palestinian side of the story. And it's something promising that maybe we'll have a better future.
Well, I think that from the queue outside the door of the cinema, we can say there's definitely an appetite for this kind of cinema. Now, this festival here in Paris follows hot on the heels of another much better known festival here in France, Cannes. Now, this year's Directors' Fortnight featured a Moroccan film by Nabil Ayouch called Much Love. This was very controversial because it became banned in Morocco afterwards because it talks about prostitution, and they say, I quote, it's an outrage to the moral values of the Moroccan woman. Do you think filmmakers in the Arab world are very limited by these institutional kind of controls, this sort of censorship? How do they get around that?
I think in the Arab countries in general, the censorship is playing a major role because there is funding and they can control the funding, they can control the location of shooting locations, giving permissions and stuff. Lucky Palestinians, we don't have that much of authority on the ground from the Palestinian Authority. So basically we can shoot whatever we want in Palestine. So we don't have that much of censorship. But at the same time, we have this kind of, I won't say censorship, but there is this always a fear of what is going to be allowed without making troubles with the Israelis. So you don't have to get arrested.
A certain reticence, perhaps. Well, two Palestinian filmmakers who have forged a successful career showed their film at Cannes too this year. The film's called Dégradé, and it gives us a peek at daily life in the Gaza Strip. Let's hear from them.
Dégradé
is a metaphor for the Gaza Strip. It takes in all social classes, talking about daily life in Gaza, and breaks with this cliché about Palestinian women. This film is about the political, social, and economic reality, about the occupation and resistance. We talk about all these issues through the female characters. The message in this film is that our people deserve to have a life. We create life from nothing.
Now, you've said in your artist statement that working in Palestine is a bit like being in a big prison. There's an illusion of peace, but there's a thirst for freedom at the same time. But you have created art, and others of your generation have created and made art. How did you manage to do that in a place so bereft of infrastructure?
Basically, this is what I do. I don't know how to do anything else. This is a way of living. And I feel that doing art, especially this kind of political and social art, is in a way participating in the socio-political debate happening in Palestine. So you feel active, you feel alive in a place that promotes death.
So it's a way of resistance, I suppose. Now, as an artist, as we said, you're multidisciplinary. You've worked across a range of different media. You've done complex group efforts, which are animation and films, which are always necessarily collaborative, and then lo-fi things like drawing and painting. If your mission is to communicate with people and to spread your message, is that not problematic in a place like Gaza, where there is no functioning cinema for the last 30 years? With film.
Sure, even in Gaza there is no cinema at all at this time. In Ramallah there is one, in Jenin there is one, which is not enough. But sometimes the Palestinian people surprise you. For example, last week in Gaza they had a festival at the same time of Cannes. They called it the Red Carpet Film Festival, and they basically had a very long red carpet in the ruins of the last war. In between, it was a big street in between destroyed buildings, a long red carpet, and they invited the people. They say that usually the red carpet is for cinema stars and for actors. This red carpet is for the heroes of Gaza. So they invited the people of Gaza to walk on this red carpet, and it looked magnificent. So sometimes you get surprised, even after all of this death in Gaza, they came up with this magnificent film festival.
It sounds quite glamorous, in fact. Now, to come back to your film, The Wanted 18, I found it very funny how animals were used as part of this story. They were the star of the story, in a way, in a region where there are normally so many human stories. Palestinian cinema has a little tradition of using animals. There's that film, When Pigs Have Wings, of Sylvain Estibal, where a pig is fished out of the water in Gaza, and Rani Masalia's film, Girafada. Let's take a look at this clip.
You don't understand. She keeps refusing to eat. She is dying.
Okay. What's the plan, Habibi?
The only solution is that you send me a male giraffe and you send it now.
An endangered species to the West Bank. You know the Yassine.
Allahu Akbar.
Why do you think filmmakers turn to animals for their storytelling?
Usually it's kind of tradition all over the Arab countries to use animals as metaphors. Sometimes also George Orwell did it in Animal Farm. In my case, I think it's easier for the West to sympathize with a cow rather than sympathizing with a Palestinian. So I use the cow as a Trojan cow, where you love the cow, eyelashes, her eyes, and you follow the cow. She takes you into this journey to see how does it feel to live under occupation. So it's kind of a trick.
Okay, it was a good trick, it worked. Now, much of your work, like we said, is collaborative efforts, participation from friends and family. Paris is soon to host a joint Israeli-Palestinian Festival of the Arts, including music, poetry, film, painting. What do you think of these initiatives to bring together two peoples who are normally at war? Do you think they work?
I don't think it worked. I think it gives a wrong impression about the reality in Palestine. At the end, meeting Israelis in Europe is quite dangerous because it gives the impression that everything on the ground works well. Although on the same hand, most of the Israelis had to serve in the army, so you can be stopped on a checkpoint in Palestine by an artist and meeting him here to work together. So it's quite confusing. I'm for the BDS, the Boycott Israeli campaign, and I think it worked in South Africa. It started in Europe, it worked in South Africa, it made things a bit better in South Africa, ended the apartheid system, and I think this should be the case with the Palestinian-Israeli situation.
So we've still got quite a long way to go.
Yeah.
Sadly, that's all we've got time for. Amer Shomali, thanks
you.
so much for being with us. We'll leave you with some of the highlights of Paris's first Festival of Palestinian Cinema. You can catch these films until June 7th. Remember, you can get more culture news on our website. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
جاء الاتصال لاحقا. Le téléphone demandé est éteint pour le moment.